How's
Hello.
everybody been? It's like it's been forever. It's only been 2 weeks. Who's got something to share? What's everybody been up to? I've, I have to catch up on the school group. I see there's lots of activity there. Looking forward to seeing what everybody's been up to. But would anybody like to share?
Can you tell us how your trip was?
Trip was great. Yeah, I was in the Amazon jungle. I was on the Amazon River. Um, we did some secret shamanic stuff, and I was in Lima and Iquitos, and yeah, it's been a whirlwind. Just got back yesterday. It was
Now, do you
amazing.
want to share more about your shamanic stuff?
Oh, it's secret stuff, but very, 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 very powerful, life-changing stuff. Lots of healing. Yeah, lots of healing. Lots of lots of amazing experiences. Maybe I'll have stuff trickle out over the weeks and months to come, but for now, I'm gonna keep it private as I integrate what happened. But amazing. So glad I made it out alive. And the jungle didn't completely swallow me up, but yeah, it was something else. Look forward to going back next time to do some more touristy stuff. I want to see the Nazca lines and Machu Picchu and Cusco and all the big touristy stuff that I didn't get to see because I was in the jungle. So, yeah, amazing. Thanks for asking. Oh, I lost somebody. Bye. It's David. So, actually, we left off last time with you, Danielle. Let's pick up with you. I know you've had some incredibly powerful conversations. I have not caught up yet, so I don't know what's happened um, since your dad wanted to talk after you talked with your mom. So catch us all up.
Yeah, so that was like next level. You weren't kidding when you said it's just the beginning. It's incredibly powerful and just so transformative, and to speak from a place of feeling when you're centered and grounded and yeah, I'm just blown away. I spoke with my dad and I told him some pretty powerful stuff. You know, it would have been incredibly hard to hear. And I took control and I was like, okay, well, you're here. I need you to listen to me. And when I'm done talking, you can speak, you know? And the way he looked at me, it was like he was piercing into my soul. And I just laid everything bare for him to see, you know, this is who I am and this is what I went through. And at the end of it, he thanked me. He was like, thank you for having the courage to tell me this. It must have been very hard for you to say. And I said, yeah. I mean, I read him that letter that I wrote. I don't know if you remember it. It was pretty hectic and brutally honest. And yeah, he took responsibility for the first time. I mean, we've had these conversations before many years ago, and he gaslit me before. And he was kind of telling me, oh, that was your experience. You were a naughty kid. I was disciplining you because I loved you. And this time it was different. Um, he said those things did happen, and I'm sorry. You know, I was learning too, and he tried at some point to um, say, you know, we can't blame our parents, and I said, I don't blame you, Dad. I'm just telling you what my experience was. the truth of what happened to me, and I've been shoving it down, and now I'm ready to lay it bare. I no longer am allowing it to run my life. Um, and you can do the same. Whatever happened with your parents, I'm not sure. Um, but you have an opportunity to go in there and uncover it. And we have a responsibility to take accountability for our own lives. Of course, I said, I don't blame you, but I need to move past this. And I'm blocking you out. I said, we don't have a relationship. That's the truth. And he said, yeah, we don't have a relationship, but I would like a relationship. So I said, okay, well, you'll have to do the work in your way, um, and one step at a time, but the door is open. I thought I was closing a door. I was like ready to just be like, I'm done with you. And a week before that, a day before that, if he told me, can I hug you? I would have told him to get wrecked. And as I allowed space for him to speak, I just saw all of a sudden him as a little boy. And I saw his desperation for hope, um, to have a relationship with his mother. I realized in that moment, he's not just seeking a relationship with me, he wanted a relationship with his mom too that he didn't have. And it was so bizarre because all of a sudden I could see him as a little boy. And when he asked me to hug me, like grace and compassion, like the true essence of what that is, came over me, and I was then allowed him that grace because we all need grace, right? And it doesn't mean I excused him. It just meant that I gave him grace. Um, and yeah, I hugged him, and it was like hugging a little boy. And since that day, he's been messaging me, and you know, it's not like all of a sudden we have this relationship. It's like one day at a time, and it's through truth and honesty. And that really is shifting me on a microscopic level because it's happening in all my relationships. And I'm changing, and everything around me is changing, and it's just the most beautiful thing. And it's not about feeling good; it's about feeling and aligning to truth. And yeah, I'm just so stoked. I'm so stoked on life. And whatever I go through, when I feel that resistance coming up, and I'm like, oh, like, what is it that I don't want to feel here? And allowing that space, that stillness, that quietude, that space to allow it to do its thing. And then it comes up. Then I'm like, okay, this is where I am. This is where I'm not. This is how to move forward from this place, in the center. So it's not always easy, but it's an incredible way to move through life. So it's really the interconnective connective tissue that's brought everything together for me. So thank you. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing. That sounds like a miracle. Yeah, for those of you that don't know, he was just incredibly abusive. So to have any of this be there is is a miracle for both of you. And there's a road ahead. It's there was some horrific stuff. It doesn't just disappear overnight. But if both people are sincere and they're committed to grace and compassion and forgiveness and taking responsibility and accountability and making new choices and showing up in new ways. One insight I had um, on my journey um, was was revealed to me that there has to be a chance. There always has to be a chance. There always has to be not just a second chance, but there just always has to be a chance um, for there to be any hope. Um, so it's an interesting thing with boundaries and safety and respect, self-respect, having also the willingness to give chances. Because if you don't have a chance, there's no hope. How's anything going to change? Um, so it's quite a thing when we stop giving ourselves chances. What happens? We give up. Right? There's no hope. Why try? Apathy sets in. Now you'll go crazy if you keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result, right? So it's not just about letting people walk over us or allowing the same behavior over and over again. But at the deepest and highest orders, there's always a chance that that possibility for redemption, it has to be there. It has to be there. Um, or the whole system just falls apart. There also has to be justice, right? There has to be justice. And when we see a society, a government, where criminals are not held accountable, bad stuff happens. The population becomes demoralized, right? If any of us live in countries, uh, all of us that have corrupt aspects of government, of corporations, of agencies, of whatever it may be, religions, institutions, whatever. When that corruption is exposed and not met with justice and accountability, it's incredibly demoralizing to the population. Um, because it shows what are we doing? Bad guys get caught, nothing happens to them, and yet if I miss $1 on my taxes, I go to jail forever. It's that recipe without that justice, true justice. I'm speaking a little more esoterically, the true meaning of justice, and that always possibility to have second, third, fourth, however many chances. What sort of order that is, um, it's it's necessary. Um, how that looks in everyday life is a different level of the topic. That's that's up for that's up for whatever it's up for. Um, but you can see that in this example with Danielle, that that possibility was there, even though she didn't necessarily go into it with it in her awareness. Of course, it was there because it happened. She was filled with that grace because that grace was there. She was open to it. It's a very, very healing. Now, regardless of what her dad actually does, um, it's a different story again. Um, but it's not necessarily the outcome where the miracle is. The miracle is in that grace, that openness. in that receptivity. And that's available to all of us, both interpersonally and spiritually. And we see um, communities and organizations and civilizations break down when these things are absent, on purpose, or out of ignorance. So, what are you guys hearing from what I just shared or what Danielle shared?
I mean, that speaks to me, Andrew, because something I've been thinking about recently is just, yeah, boundaries that, we have to have with parents or family in particular. And, um, and it is sad when you feel like you have to enforce these boundaries because you love them, and you want to let your guard down. You don't want to have your guard so up. But when they betray the love, it forces you to then enforce kind of energetically these boundaries, right? But as I'm hearing you talk, I'm like, but yeah, like you've also got to let chance pierce those boundaries a little bit for transformation to happen. But it's just something I've been thinking about recently as well, because especially I think in my family, with my dad in particular, I have to be much more on guard, with boundaries. Sometimes, whether it's his mood or whatever, he's feeling a little more open and I can let my guard more down and it be okay. But just when I think, that all is good, that's when, bam, he'll betray the love and it sucks. So,
So, a couple things. If you have a story like that where it's like, all right, well, just when I feel open, that's when it comes in. That's something that you're playing.
tell me more.
Well, anytime we say, "See, I knew it," it's a game we're playing. We're conning ourselves. We're setting it up. We're going to set ourselves open, right? We'll open ourselves to someone that we should know better, and just as we imagine, they're going to come in and hurt us. We set that whole dynamic up.
But if we don't keep giving them an opportunity to transform, a chance
Mm-hmm.
to, then we take away that chance,
Well,
right?
these are different things. So I can give somebody an opportunity
Mm,
without it being, I knew it. As soon as you have, see, I knew it, or every time, or each time, as soon as I allow myself to be vulnerable, they come in. It's a pattern, right? There's a setup at some level. You know it's going to happen, and so I don't know for you what it revalidates. It revalidates the story, right? It'll revalidate. See, I can't trust him, or see whatever the C is.
mm,
So if you look to what the C is, the SEE, right, in italics, C, or I knew it, or every time, that's a story. That's a setup,
mm.
which is if you have that attached to letting your guard down, it becomes it becomes part of this cycle. Like those two things, when we're talking about boundaries and giving chances, that feeds itself. That feeds the they work together, right? Like martyrdom and self-sacrifice. Those are those are partners. Um, so ultimately, you want to be. How do I say this? There's a couple things here. Letting our guard down, right? There's something there. There's something in every time that I do that, that's when they come in and hurt me again, right? There's a setup there somehow. Um, then there's also the setup of giving somebody a chance, right? So if I'm with somebody that I know is going to hurt me, I'm not going to allow them to do that, right? So I'm going to have a very strongly enforced boundary. So what happens when we say, all right, I want to give somebody a chance? Well, when you have the C element, you know you're setting it up, right? It's not authentic. There's a setup there. You're conning yourself, you're conning them. They're manipulating you, you're letting them manipulate you just so you can prove that whatever it is, right? That there's these subtle dynamics. So you don't want to give somebody a chance when it comes from the "see I told you so" energy. So if you give somebody a chance and when they, let's say, fail or hurt you, and you don't say, "ah, see, I knew it," that sort of reveals it was a more authentic opportunity chance. If you say, okay, all right, I know I have a feeling. If you start off with, hey, I have a feeling this person is probably going to do what I expect them to do, but I'm going to allow them to do it. It's not a gotcha because you know it. Because I can feel the energy and I can feel that this person is probably not in the place to do that. But I make a choice to allow them to do that anyways, to see what happens, to offer that chance. I don't allow them to hurt me because I don't take it personal. I'm not surprised because I can see it, I can feel it. So there's no, gotcha. I don't open my heart up and allow them to stab me and then point the finger at them or myself. I open myself a bit to explore. I'm curious. What's going to happen? I probably have a good idea, but let's see what happens. But I'm not attached to the outcome. I'm not taking it personal because I'm a at a certain place emotionally, energetically, mentally, physically, I can handle whatever it is that they do. Right? So let's say maybe they're late, maybe they say something bad about me, maybe they screw whatever something is up, maybe let's say they fail or make a mistake, whatever it is. Within me, I have enough buffer zone, I have enough grace, compassion zone that even if they do the thing, I'm not affected by it because I made the conscious choice to open enough to that. I made the conscious choice to allow that to happen. So it's not an I gotcha. Now, if I come in and I really think that, or I really feel that they're anew, I really feel that they're not going to hurt me, and it's less of a cautious opening and more of a wow, amazing. I'm here for this. And then they, let's say, succeed at whatever it is. They respect it. Oh, great. Cool, check. This is evidence. This is proof that I can surrender more to them in this, that I can trust more of them in this instance, in this process. But if I do the same thing and then let's say they mess up again, I'm not going to say, I expected that. Okay, no big deal. But I'm also not going to say, see, I knew it. Gotcha. They got me. They did it again. I'm going to say, oh, okay. Well, all right. They weren't as ready as I thought. Okay. Maybe take a step back or same step, side step. So it's also it's not a cautious expectation, but it's also not a got me by surprise. And now I say, see, I knew it every time, right? It doesn't feed into the story. It just is a piece of feedback that says, oh, okay, right. So I think that's a good way to distinguish it. Rather than it revalidating the story, it's a piece of data. It's feedback that shows me where they are. So I think kind of took a journey here because I've never really articulated this before. So kind of bringing you all along on this process. So that distinction is the difference between new feedback where you're open to finding out, right? You have to be safe and secure enough in yourself to allow that boundary to be crossed, right? You have to be willing and comfortable and safe and strong enough for that to happen. If let's say you last night your dad beat the crap out of you that he's done for 10 years, that's not the position where you can open up that boundary a bit to allow that new chance, right? Danielle is a great example of this. It's been years, decades since that kind of happened. And she's been on a healing journey. And she was in a place where she was actually able to say, all right, got to see ya. But he responded differently to that. Not necessarily because of only him, because of Danielle, probably, mostly. And maybe the fact that his wife also had some things to say. So it was a culmination of things that allowed Danielle to be in the perfect place to allow that grace, to allow that opening. If she was 9 years old again, that would not have been the place. But it was within her the entire time. There was never a 100% forever close off. There probably were moments that were like 99.999, fuck this evil motherfucker, never touching me or talking to me again. But we know it was never 100% forever because there was an opening here. So is this helpful? Are you getting something from this, Neil?
Yeah, it's very helpful. Thank you. As you were explaining it, especially the last part that you explained, you know, like that really made it a lot clearer for me there, and it just kind of made it a lot clearer for me. Oh yeah, like when my boundaries are not clear enough, I'm that's also when I'll be getting in a story, you know. As the boundaries are much clearer, it's like for example, my dad said something to me recently, and I could feel his fear, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is coming from a place of his fear and lack of self-love. So I'm feeling that, and I'm like, okay, that's his fear because I'm not scared about the topic that we were talking about. So I knew that I was like, okay, that's his fear coming through and lack of self-love. And but in this particular instance, he caught me off guard because we had talked about it like a few days ago, and then he just bam, sent me a message, and so I was just like kind of off guard, and I
Okay.
didn't have my boundary there.
Okay. Well, so this is slightly different. The boundary should always be in place. If someone catches you off guard, that means that you have to be on guard. So this is something it's really neat because this is one of these things that we have as matter of speech, right? This is just a something colloquialism,
Mhm.
but there's actually something to it. So it's like I want to come up with a fun name for these because I'm not sure if there's like an actual name for this stuff yet. But it's like, well, to be honest, or well, to tell you the truth, or well, it caught me off guard, or ooh, uh, these sort of things. There's a handful of them that we say that are said in passing, but actually reveal something very important. One of the things I like to say when someone says, "Well, to be honest, blah 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 blah," are you normally not honest? Is this a rare occurrence that you're now telling me the truth that you normally don't? And sometimes it's just a matter of speech, um, but oftentimes it's not. And I've caught myself doing this on my journey. Um, and I'm just like, well, yeah, I guess to be honest, I really don't like this or whatever it is. And so it's like, what does that reveal? Well, it reveals, let's say in that instance, well, yeah, to be honest, this isn't my favorite. Well, it reveals that perhaps normally we are more politically correct, or we are rescuing, or we don't really share how we really feel about stuff. I've been some places in past few years where people don't expect honesty, and I'm like, this doesn't taste very good, and then they're like offended. They take it personal. Like it's not personal. You asked me if I liked it, and I said no, I don't. It's not very good. You're not a bad person for it. I'm not saying you're a piece of shit. I'm not saying that you're awful in life and you don't deserve love. I'm just saying this doesn't taste very good. And that sort of um, that sort of feedback or just honesty isn't very common in our cultures. So we have these little, I don't know, they're not. I'll think about it. Fun little name because I got weasel language, but this is sort of like revealing language. It's like exposing language. Um, so the caught me off guard thing caught me off guard. Ultimately, what we're going for is not to be on guard. So you say, all right, but what about staying safe? What about protecting ourselves? It's a little different. So many of us walk through the world in armor. We're armored. We're holding the shield all the time. Our heart is in a cage. And when we say things like, you caught me off guard, it reveals that there's a sort of preparation towards life. There's a sort of being on in a certain way. And it's not bad, it's not wrong. It just reveals something, right? It reveals something about us or our environment. And let's let's propose a question. This is just a proposal. I'm not saying this is what we want to do, but I just want to propose this thought experiment. How can you or somebody stay safe with your dad without having to be on guard? So I
Okay,
guess let's make it personal. Yeah, go ahead.
hold up, Andrew, because you made me think of something like a question reply to everything that you just said.
Yeah,
Like,
go for it.
boundaries and being on guard, are these different things?
Yes.
Can you have boundaries without being on guard?
Yes. And you can be on guard without having boundaries. Oftentimes, great, Neil, amazing. Love you. Great fucking question. Oftentimes, we have to be on guard because we don't have boundaries, or we're out of relationship with them, or we don't know how to enforce them, or we don't know how to express them, or the people around us don't know how to respect them. And these are all of those things are in my in the cynosomatic boundaries panel that we do. So when we do boundaries work, um, there's a whole set of these things that in cynosomatics we work on with boundaries. Um, having boundaries, um, having boundaries, setting having boundaries, setting slash communicating boundaries, expressing boundaries, um, enforcing boundaries, um, having your boundaries violated, and respecting other people's boundaries. So that penultimate one was not something that you strive for, but it's what's your relationship. What do you do when your boundaries are violated? And then the last one is respecting other people's, because there's a lot of people that have great boundaries, but they don't respect other people's. And there's a lot of people that um, have boundaries but don't know how to enforce them or communicate them. Right. So what happens if you have boundaries but you don't communicate them and set them with people, but then you just enforce them? All of a sudden, people are like, they don't know. They didn't know that was your boundary. So they violate or cross your boundary. All of a sudden, you're enforcing it, saying, don't fucking ever do that to me again, which is an extreme way to enforce it. And they're like, the fuck did I do? You never even told me I couldn't go in the fridge or something like this. Right. So that's an example when that one's missing. Or if you have the enforcing missing, then you just keep repeating yourself. Please don't do that. Please. Here's my boundary. Here's my boundary. Okay. All right. You crossed my boundary. Okay. Well, this is my boundary. Right. There's no enforcing of it. Consequences. Enforcement implies consequences. Having boundary. If you don't even have boundaries, the rest are just a mess. Um, and then, right, if you don't respect other people's, if you don't have your own, it's really hard to respect other people's too, because you don't even know what they are. You don't know how to relate to them. And then there's a difference between boundaries and barriers, right? So boundaries are lines in the sand. They're visible, but um, immaterial. Barriers are material, right? They're walls. They're walls. It says nothing can get in, but nothing gets out, right? They're impenetrable. This is often the armoring, the guarding. Can't get in. A lot of people are doing this. A lot of people mistake boundaries for this. You're impenetrable. Boundaries allow you to be penetrable. It just shows where you want to and not want to be penetrated. That's an interesting way to say it. With who, when, how, the who, what, where, why, when, whatever, of being penetrable, of vulnerability. Penetrable. Yeah, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good definition. Um, and so if you're moving through life with the barriers, with the armoring, this is, I think a lot of us know what kind of life that is, how much love you let in and let out. Where boundaries, you say, here's the line, don't cross it. People can cross, right? They're physically able. They're not allowed to, but they're able to. Whereas a wall, they're not. Um, so being on guard, what does being on guard feel like to you? You don't do a full cynosomatic thing, but just for a few seconds, imagine it. What does that feel like to you?
I mean, maybe it's because of what you just said, but it feels more like a wall or a barrier than a boundary. Because when I have boundaries, they feel more subconscious and I don't feel like I'm having to actively enforce it in the moment. While when I feel like I have to be on guard, there is a closing of my soul a little bit. There is a little shield,
Yeah.
on my heart.
Right. So did I answer your question?
Um,
Boundaries, boundaries and being on guard at the same time, or the difference between the two.
I guess I still don't understand how you can. Maybe I'll just have to rewatch the replay, and
No, just ask your question again. Let's see.
yeah, I guess I still am not clear how you can. I think it's something I'm gonna have to feel through,
Okay.
because yeah, this and kind of think about more.
Okay. Well, little tiny feedback is that even when you just went like this is more of a wall, right? This is more of an on guard, or like someone's trying to violate your boundaries, something like this. Um, that doesn't look like just having a boundary. That looks like having to enforce it or putting up a wall. Yeah.
Does the on guard mean that you're taking it more personal than you should be? Like you're guarding because you really take it personal? Whereas if you didn't take it personal, you wouldn't have to be on guard?
Yeah. So that great. You guys are on it tonight. Um, so that's back to the truth requires no defense, right? So bring that little thing in. The truth requires no defense. So if you're defending something, right, it reveals either what's coming at you isn't the truth, right? Because if it's an attack, then it's not the truth. Also reveals, could reveal that what you're defending, what you're protecting isn't true either. Whether that's your ego, your story, the thing you're taking personal. So Elaine, right? If if we're not taking it personal, if we're not giving it meaning, if we're not letting it bother us, we don't have to be on guard from it because we're safe. But at the same time, if it's a real attack, then it's not the truth, right? So the person that's speaking to us isn't telling the truth, which is, remember, not loving. And then so if we find ourselves defending, we have to look on both sides of that.
Yeah, thank you, Elaine. That helped me understand it better. I guess, Andrew, is it possible to just have boundaries and not have to be on guard with everyone? Or are there some people, like, for example, someone who you think can very possibly physically harm you? I feel like you have to put a wall or a barrier, right? Like, are there some cases where you're just going to have that? How do we differentiate, between those cases when you have to have a wall boundary?
Yeah, good question. Um, I suppose there's two things. One, the very practical one in our everyday life. Um, that feels more like, a practical self-defense. It comes up in a moment when, you know, you're sitting here and something's coming at you and you block it and then you come down. Versus you're just walking around like this all the time. If you're just walking around like this all the time, guess what happens? It's actually going to invite attack, right? defending invites attack. Just like acting like a victim attracts being victimized, perpetrators. Right? They've done studies that show people that have been victims of assault are like twice as more likely to be assaulted again because they've shrank. They're carrying this prey energy. It's terribly unfortunate. That's why it's so important to get people. That's why it's amazing that there's all these programs out there for self-defense for people that have been victims of sexual abuse, attack, physical violence, whatever it is. Because if you can get that person who's been assaulted, attacked, to feel confident, to open their energy up and not be afraid, well, the predators aren't going to be looking at them. Guess what predators look for? Prey. So if you're running around with prey energy, victim energy, it's unfortunate. It's not politically correct, but the reality is it's going to attract that. Right? If you just imagine that the sick, weak gazelle, what's the lion? Is the lion going to go for the king of the herd, or is it going to go for the weak, sick, dying one? Yeah, it's just how it works. It's law of attraction kind of stuff. So if you're walking around being defensive all of the time, guess what's going to happen? A, you might just have people attacking you all the time, or B, you're going to feel attacked all the time. Right? So has anybody been or know anybody who's just defensive all the time, and they just think you and everyone's attacking them? And you're just like, I just asked you to turn it down. I'm not attacking you. Those people are taking everything personally, right? That's what Elaine mentioned has to do with being on guard. Now, it doesn't sound like you are on guard all the time. It sounds with specific people. So, in certain instances, I think the best way would to. I have very, very strong boundaries and non-negotiables with people. I don't necessarily put up a wall. I'll put up a very like a an impermeable boundary, I suppose, which I guess would be a wall. It depends on your definition, but it's less of, yeah, it's just it's less of this absolute thing and just a choice. It's more like I make a different choice than just build up a wall here and lug this wall around for other people. I'm just going to look this way and go this way. If this person comes, I'm going to say no, goodbye. And it just doesn't get to it. If it does get to that, then yeah, I'm going to protect myself, right? Physically, emotionally, or I may go on the offensive if it's an intense thing. That that's that aspect, and then you have sort of the spiritually enlightened aspect, where it's like you defend nothing, and this comes in. This is when Buddha was under the Bodhi tree of illumination, and is just thing after thing was being thrown at him: swords, arrows, knives. All of this stuff was being thrown at the Buddha for him to protect himself. And what happened was he defended none of it. And as it came into him, they all turned into bouquets of flowers. And this isn't necessarily a literal thing. Like if a knife is literally coming at you, it's not what we're talking about. We're talking about energetically. So energetically, right, that is an illustration of the truth requires no defense. The trueness, the Buddha's true self, right, our true nature is true. So it requires no defense. The truth requires no defense. The truth of who you are requires no defense. So someone could call me a whatever it is, the worst slurs you could come across, right? They could call me a obese um leper midget, whatever. It's not going to bother me because it's so far away from who I am. Now, if they called me a scrawny little twerp, that might be closer to home. And if I had stories or triggers around that, I might get defensive. But if I heal that and I understand that the essence of who I am can never be attacked, it's inattackable because it's true. So if you feel attacked, if you feel under attack, we know it has to be the ego. Otherwise, you wouldn't need to defend it. Say, okay. So we're working on sort of multiple layers here, because we we don't want to speak from an organism level the same way we want to talk about our spiritual truth. Because as an organism, if you just stand there, you get stabbed and die, and well, that's sort of the end of it. I look at nature. Natural law says you should protect yourself. You literally have an immune system. You literally have boundaries, right? People say you shouldn't have boundaries. They're absolutely crazy. People should say your country, your state, your home shouldn't have borders, walls, doors, fences. It's insane. Look at every organism in the world. There's a cell boundary. There's a membrane. We have a skin. It's not solid. It's not a brick wall, right? Our skin is not a brick wall. It's a boundary. It's penetrable, right? Sweat comes in, things come in and out. Our cells are not solid. They're boundaries. But guess what happens when they become solid? We call that calcified. Right? They become calcification. They're hardened. Nothing can come in and out. They're also inflexible, right? Any little thing breaks them. The same happens to our physical body as well as our psyche. So a little, it's nonlinear, a nonlinear answer here, but you can feel how these different levels can all help us.
Oh, I can really feel it. Thank you so much for that whole explanation, and also thank you again, Elaine, bringing in the personal into it, because I think it's an important piece as well. I'm gonna rewatch this again, but yeah, I feel like I have so much more clarity on this. Thank you.
Great, you're welcome. Thanks for great questions and taking us on this journey. Who else? Wow, that's the whole fucking call. All right.
Sorry.
Did anybody else find that valuable? Good, good. Yeah, all good, Neil. Yeah, that was a fun journey. Anybody else? Let's see. Eliza, we haven't seen you in a while. Anything you'd like to share?
Yeah, sorry, this usually conflicts with some time I have with my son who's with me half time, and so I was able to be here tonight, and it's so powerful, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity. And it, of course, just happens to be the topic that I've been exploring, that is so nuanced and so multi-leveled, and this has been a very helpful exploration. So I'd have asked similar questions.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. You're welcome. Anybody else? Maybe one more question, one more share. We got some little time.
I've had a good break. I've just been enjoying, well, I've
A
been
break
really,
from, you mean a break from me?
yeah,
Yes. Okay.
well, just from, yeah, all of that. Even though I'm actually like reaping the rewards of all the work because I've had a lot of really good days, and our business is really busy during Thanksgiving, and there's a lot of planning on my part, like ordering enough sweet potatoes and just having everything available. And then so it's just been a lot of work. And then our main one of our employees, her husband died, and her daughter and her work for us, so we didn't have two employees. So was just a lot of work. And then I moved into a 3-bedroom house out of the RV. And I was trying to get my laptop set up because I got a laptop. And
Amazing.
I thought I had it set up, but I didn't have Zoom on there. And then I tried to get Zoom, but so just had to come back in the RV. But it's just been, yeah, just a lot of good.
So you got your own laptop that you never had before, and now you got a house out of an RV.
Yes.
Sounds like
And
sounds
yeah,
like a big deal.
it is. And I've lived in like just weird places that I've tried to make homes, and I'm so glad to like have a closet, I'm just so tired.
I know. Listen, I just got back from the jungle. I'm glad to have a closet too. Yeah, and a bidet. That's nice.
By the way, I love your outfit or it
Thank
just
you.
so
Yeah, I got
cool.
this is baby alpaca and silk. I got it in Peru.
Oh my
That's why I
gosh.
had to wear it.
Yeah. Looks good.
Thank you.
Yes. So I've been having a lot of good days, and I really like having my new space, and so it's just happiness.
Wonderful. Amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mhm.
Holly, you were
Yeah, I was gonna just say something to the effect of like having boundaries versus being armored up. Um, I think this is something that I've kind of been working through lately as well. And what I'm noticing is, sorry, my cat is threatening to get sick right now, so I might have to go in a second. Um, but what I'm noticing is that I didn't trust myself before, and had very tall walls instead of boundaries. Because every time I set a boundary, people would disrespect it, and I didn't enforce it. I just put up a wall. Um, so as I'm learning to trust myself and I'm tuning into my intuition, I'm seeing things that I didn't see before, and that's building trust within myself. And then I'm able to tell this person is not trustworthy, or they're not trustworthy yet, or they're possibly never going to be trustworthy. Um, but I'm able to take the wall down and put a boundary in its stead.
amazing. Yeah, and what starts to happen is that, oh, now that you are trusting yourself and you're feeling safer with yourself, and as you start learning how to enforce the boundaries and communicate them and do so in a way that will protect you, all these walls start coming down. And then the more walls come down, the more you can start seeing because there's not a fucking wall in front of you. And then you
Yeah,
can start feeling, right? Because the wall is going to prevent you from feeling them and them from feeling you.
yeah,
And so the walls come down. That's why you want boundaries, because so you can feel. Because if I just walled everything up, I can't feel or see anybody around me. And so I have no walls, but I have all these boundaries. I can feel everybody. And how in this work we use are in feeling, um, that's the way. I'm not analyzing people's body language from my head. I'm not running, 500 different survival protection checklists. Okay, well, every time I see someone that does this, I got to do that. You'll go crazy, right? That's being on guard. You're being on alert. You're hyper vigilant, right? Hypervigilance is you're looking at somebody and you're just doing this, right? I meet people. I'm like, whoa, relax. These people have been probably traumatized, probably hurt, abused, whatever massive survival mechanisms and strategies, um, to be on alert all the time in this hypervigilance. Threat detection, I call it too, right?
yeah.
They're looking for the threat in the micro expressions or in the body language or the words. And when you can start trusting yourself again, when you can start having the confidence to be able to enforce and set and communicate and all the stuff with boundaries, protect yourself. You free up all this energy because all that energy that was going to protection and survival and threat assessment is now freed up. Then you can start feeling everybody and say, danger, danger, bad person, scary person, safe person, loving person. Not sure about this person. Why? Because they're not sure about themselves. They're sending mixed signals. This person, I can't feel them at all. Oh, they're either a sociopath that can't feel, or they're completely blocking everybody out in order to do whatever it is. So I tune into everybody through feeling based awareness, and I can read them. That's what I do with everybody on this call. That's what I do with you guys in cinesomatics. Cinesomatics is there for you to see it in yourself, in your own body, and for me to be able to kind of slow down and dive in deeper. But I don't necessarily need the video movement to be able to read people. That's the proof. That's the evidence. That's all the things that I missed if I was looking at other stuff. The real magic of the work is the energy. It's the feeling underneath everything. And as you start dropping these walls, you start to be able to replace the walls and the threat detection and the hypervigilance with feeling. You free up all this energy. It's just like ping, ping, ping. And I know I can read people's minds. I know what they're thinking. I know what they're feeling. And that becomes my rudder. That becomes my internal guidance system. So we replace shields and swords and walls and moats and crystallases with feeling, with trust in ourselves, with trust in life, with the truth, with the truth requires no defense, with letting go of the defending, with having boundaries, clear boundaries, communicating, enforcing them, etc., 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 etc. And so that reduces anxiety. It distresses us. It frees up all this energy. We open ourselves up to miracles, to life, to love, to money, to abundance, to possibilities, to creativities, to ideas, to intuitions. Can you feel the difference, everybody, when I give both of those examples? Just how it feels completely different in the field, in the space, when I say one thing versus when I say the other. That's the invitation here, folks. That's what I'm offering in this work. The ability to move through life in one of those ways by healing all of the things that caused us to create a life where we're doing all those other things. So it's not an overnight magic pill, but those of you that have been working with me for a while, it's not just one little fix we're doing. This is about an entirely new way of relating to ourselves, to others, to the space, and to life itself.
There's another piece to this that I think I would be remiss not to mention too, is that when we're not hypervigilant all the time, if something is going to happen that requires us to defend ourselves, we actually have energy to do that instead of
Great
being
point.
exhausted from all the hypervigilance and then not having anything left. It's just like, oh, well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about nope? Don't think so. Boop. Yeah. Or just deflecting it, right? Or even if it hits pink, right? We're so big when we're so small and exhausted, just the smallest thing, right? Feels huge. I've said things to people that maybe weren't 100% perfect and wonderful, enlightened, just like maybe a little thing. If their energy is just so crippled, they're going to be like, "You're a monster. How dare you?" What if they're healed and they're in feeling? They're like, eh. Or they'll play back with me, like, "Oh, you're gonna do that." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'll do that." Oh, you're gonna do that. Right? It can be playful. That's what is it? Judo or Aikido, right? Where you literally take that energy that's coming in and you redirect it into love, into play, into something. I like to do that with myself or in relationships with people. and something that would normally irritate me or annoy me, shift it. Or something that I do that might be irritating to someone else, they'll play. Ah, okay, right? Because none of it means anything. So that's a great point. Having that energy to actually, when you're not just completely walled up, because remember, those walls require energy to maintain. That's what they don't tell you in Fuck the World School. Right? There's the Fuck the World School. Everybody is out to get you. Everybody's going to screw you over, and you got to protect yourself from everybody. Don't trust everybody. That requires a tremendous amount of energy to keep all of these up. Just like Neil. Oh, I let my guard down. I was having fun. Oh, got to put these back up. Yeah. And so when you're not doing that, when real threat comes, whoosh, right, you have the energy to handle it. Or when love comes, when something wonderful comes, you have the energy to receive that too. I mean, so many of us are dealing with an onslaught of news and negativity and hatred and danger and abuse and threats that, God, when the fucking great thing comes, it's like, oh, look, a miracle. Okay. So great point.
One thing that I've been really happy about with myself is in our store, I've been organizing like all the juices, getting all of like Lakewood together, all the Knudsen, making sure my high dollar items are in the middle. I organized all my drinks. I had like 3 fridges of drinks, and I had like coffee over here, and I got all the energy drinks together, and I got functional drinks, kombuchas, and then I put all of the like the protein drinks over there and all the Olipop and the 4 packs, and so I'm just making it all much more like user friendly, and they can shop and buy, and it's like it's some weird thing because like I've been so busy working, but every day I was coming in like, oh, I've got to rearrange all the wine. I'm gonna get it all, and it's just like as I start rearranging in my brain and then I have all this energy, I think that's what it is. I'm able to do this, and I feel like it's an extension of myself, but it betters everyone around me, and it betters myself. I'll sell more, and so that's been really exciting. And I think energy, I mean, I wasn't able to do that.
Yeah,
We
you needed to take naps every day, let alone re or organize an entire section of your store.
I've almost forgot about that. Yes.
Don't
I knew
worry.
I
We
wasn't
have
functioning, but the napping. Oh gosh.
we have everything on video because of this as one reason is that you just over time you just shift, you evolve, and you just grow and heal. And then a year later comes by, and you're like, oh my God, I forgot I was even in so much suffering. I couldn't even go a day without having to sleep in the middle of it.
I don't even
So
think about naps
yeah,
now. That's
amazing. Yeah.
yeah.
That's beautiful, Elaine. So you just like you don't. That's beautiful.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's just the suffering's not even there.
And then life is just so much more like juicy, and then it's exciting, and it's just yeah, it's amazing how the difference. But I'm still me, but it's just
Mhm.
night and day
Yeah,
between.
well, you're more you than you've ever been.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah, you're more of your real you. Yeah. As within, so without. You're doing all this stuff inside, and then you look on the outside and say, wait a minute, that doesn't match. You can organize things. Maybe in 2 years, you're going to say, oh, actually, maybe I want to organize like this because of that new place you're in, and just a higher level, higher order of operating. That's what I've done. I mean, you would not have. Isn't this so beautiful? Look how beautiful this is. It's
I
so
bet it's
soft.
soft.
Yeah. Anyway, 3 years ago, earlier, 5 years ago, you would not caught me dead with something so flamboyant. and colorful and beautiful. But now, as I've shared many times, my story of um, clothing and art in my home, the more I've let beauty in myself, the more I've allowed beauty within myself, I've allowed it to move through myself. And the more I look around me and want more of it. And so I stand more for beauty in myself. And as I've healed, right, this took me a decade plus, right? This took me a long time of all the stuff I had to integrate masculine and feminine, my sexuality, even colors. I've practiced buying colors and wearing colors that I was afraid of, right? Like reds and yellows, oranges. Yeah, too intense, right? Too aggressive, too whatever it was. Literally of healing colors. Um, as I move through my life, I want to be surrounded more by beauty because that's how I feel inside. That's what my internal experience is. So this is as within, so without, as without, so within. And the more that I surround myself with beauty or go to places, travel to different countries, different areas, museums, the more I allow it within myself, right? So as without, so within, so without, even in the scarf. And so the same thing going on with you in a different way, with rearranging at your store.
That's so interesting you mentioned the thing about red, Andrew, because I noticed one day that I was like, there's like so little red in my house. Like every other color is represented except red. And
Mm,
I don't know why. There's something about it, it's angry or they associate it
yeah.
with anger or whatever. And just recently I've been buying stuff that's red. I've been drawing, and
Red
coloring with red
lipstick.
more. Yeah, maybe I'll try that. But but yeah, so it's interesting you mentioned that.
Yeah, it's a real thing. Yeah, the frequencies of colors and associations we have. Yeah, awesome. Wonderful. What a fun call. I love you guys so much. This is so sweet.
I love you too, Andrew.
Thank you. So we got a slack line this weekend. Who's coming? Yeah, got four of you. We got two other people coming that aren't on the call. That'll be fun. Slackline. Woo. I'll be sending out an email tonight, giving you guys some information about that. And be sure to bring warm clothes. It got frigid. I was going to say the F word, but I said frigid instead. So we got frigid here in Nashville. We're talking 20s, 30s, 40s. So check the weather, dress appropriately. I'll send an email as well. So we got a Slack line here in person. Um, January, we have a weekend workshop, and then we have a sold out discovery. That's the class. And a fellowship. That fellowship will be starting next week, next Friday, in our sort of soft launch. We'll be doing a month of Fridays because of all the holidays on Wednesdays for December. So for the first four are on Fridays, but from there on out, most of them will be Wednesdays. And so we're going to be doing a soft launch, and it looks like we got 18 to 20 something people um, registered for that. I'm going to be capping it at 25 for the first few months, just to get everything, stabilized, get a good foundation with everybody. Um, and then be opening it up to my newsletter as well. So It's going to be amazing. You guys are going to be on quite an adventure there. Going to be doing some really deep work. So happy to have most of you guys in there. I'm going to be doing a little traveling for Christmas, so you'll see me in a different location, visiting my familia, my family for the holidays. And that's all I got. Darun, thanks for joining us at the end of the call. It's nice to see you.
It said 12 o'clock my time on the calendar, and so I rocked up at 12, and yes, I must adjust my time settings.
Yeah. Well, it's good to
Yeah.
see you anyway.
Likewise.
Can't wait to see you on our call.
Absolutely.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Hope you all had a good Thanksgiving. Happy holidays. I'll see some of you guys in a couple days. And then I'll see many of you next week. I'll be sending out the link to set up the subscription, to pay for the fellowship. Make sure you do that before Friday if you want in for the first 4 calls. And that's all I got. I'm going to be catching up tomorrow on the school group, on everything you guys been posting and sharing. Looking forward to that. And have a great weekend. We'll see you next week. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Great seeing
Blue
everybody.
Weekend, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.